Like churches have bell towers, mosques have minarets. According to Muslim tradition, the imam or prayer leader would climb to the top of a minaret to call the faithful to prayer. These days, the prayer leader still performs the call to prayer live, but it's amplified by loudspeakers at the top of the minarets. The call is always the same. Allah Akbar, God is great. Witness there is only one God. Muhammad is his prophet. Come join the prayer. Come join the salvation. This city, so layered with rich history, was officially named Istanbul only in 1923 with the foundation of the modern Turkish Republic. Before that, it was called Constantinople. Over the centuries, this city has been the capital of two grand empires. The Byzantine Empire started in the 4th century and lasted until the 15th century. That's when the Ottomans took over and ruled until the end of World War I. Today, even though Turkey is governed from Ankara, Istanbul remains the financial, cultural, and historic center of this country. As ancient Rome was falling, Emperor Constantine moved the capital from the west here to the less chaotic east in around 324 AD. It was named Constantinople in his honor. Then in 476, Rome and the Western Empire fell to invading barbarians. That left Constantinople the leading city of Western civilization. Traces of the Roman capital can still be found. This square was a racetrack, like the Circus Maximus in Rome. Built in the 4th century to seat over 60,000 fans, the Hippodrome was Constantinople's primary venue for chariot races. Its centerpiece, this 3,500-year-old ancient Egyptian obelisk, was originally carved to honor a pharaoh. It was moved here to ornament the racetrack in the 4th century. What you see today is only the upper third of the original massive stone tower. The Blue Mosque was the 17th century triumph of Sultan Ahmet I. Architecturally, with its 6 minarets, it rivaled the Great Mosque in Mecca, the holiest in all Islam. Its grand courtyard welcomes the crowd that gathers for worship. As with all mosques, you park your shoes at the door, and women cover their heads. If they don't have a scarf, there are loaners at the door. Countless beautiful tiles fill the interior with exquisite floral and geometric motifs. It's nicknamed the Blue Mosque because of its blue tiles. Blue is a popular color in Turkey. It impressed early French visitors enough for them to call it the color of the Turks, or turquoise. While churches portray people like this, Muslims believe the portrayal of people in places of worship draws attention away from worshiping Allah as the one God. In mosques, rather than saints and prophets, you'll see geometrical designs and calligraphy. This explains why, historically, the Muslim world excelled at non-figurative art, while artists from Christian Europe focused on painting and sculpture of the human form. Artful Arabic calligraphy generally shows excerpts from the Quran and quotes from Muhammad. As a church would have Jesus and God front and center, in a mosque, elaborate signature medallions high above the prayer niche say Muhammad and Allah. Large ceremonial candles flank the mihrab. That's the niche which points southeast to Mecca in Saudi Arabia, where all Muslims face when they worship. Services are segregated by gender. The main hall is reserved for men, while the women's section is in the back. While to some it's demeaning to make women stay in back, Muslims see it as a practical matter. Women would rather have the option of performing the physical act of praying in private. Our storybook image of the Ottomans, sultans, harems, eunuchs, is best imagined here in the Topkapi Palace. Built in the late 15th century, this was the power center of the Ottoman Empire for almost 400 years. Its buildings form a series of courtyards, the outer being used for public functions. The further in you go, the more private the rooms. Among the most private was the harem. The word harem means forbidden in Arabic. It's the huge suite where the Sultan lived with his wives, female slaves, and children.
This is the largest room in the harem. It was the entertainment room and used for activities like the wedding of the Sultan's daughters. This was the divan that the Sultan used, his throne. The divans by the window were used by the Queen Mother and the wives of the Sultan, and the musicians used the balcony up above. But when I say a party, do not imagine a public event. It was rather for the family of the Sultan. The whole purpose of the harem was to provide future heirs to the throne, to the Ottoman throne. But most of the tourists think that it was a party place, a fantasy place. It was not. It was an institution. It had its own rules. It was very well regulated, and these rules were very strict. The Sultan was not above these rules.
So the Sultan didn't just come in and pick a girl?
Definitely not. It was the Queen Mother, mother of the Sultan, mostly, that decided what should happen in the harem. And it was again the Queen Mother that decided whom the Sultan socialized with.
And of course, the Sultan enjoyed a state-of-the-art bathroom, complete with hot and cold running water. Bathed in light from these exquisite stained-glass windows, this is where the Sultan relaxed, entertained, and savored the sumptuous luxury his power provided. Some of the Sultan's opulence is still on display in the Palace Museum. The exquisite Topkapi dagger wows tourists with its dazzling diamonds and golf ball-sized emeralds. Clearly, the Ottomans in their heyday were a wealthy power. The palace is also a holy spot for Muslims, containing relics of Muhammad and other prophets, some of whom are revered in both the Bible and the Quran. The best look at ancient Constantinople is a church-turned-mosque that's been considered among the greatest houses of worship in both the Christian and Muslim worlds. Hagia Sophia, the great church of Constantinople. Built by the Byzantine Emperor Justinian in the early 6th century on the grandest scale possible, it was later converted into a mosque by the conquering Ottomans. Today, it's a museum. Hagia Sophia, which marks the high point of Byzantine architecture, is the pinnacle of that society's 6th century glory days. This church was completed in 537, just about when Europe was entering its Dark Ages. For 4 centuries after that, Christians in Europe looked to Constantinople as the leading city in Christendom, and this was its leading church. This clever dome-upon-dome construction was the biggest dome anywhere until the Cathedral of Florence was finished during the Renaissance 900 years later. The vast interior gives the impression of a golden, weightless shell, gracefully disguising the massive overhead load supported by masterful Byzantine engineering. 40 arched windows shed a soft light on the interior, showing off the church's original marble and glittering mosaics. But the Byzantine Empire collapsed in the 15th century, and Hagia Sophia was turned into a mosque. Christian mosaics were plastered over, and new religious symbols replaced the old. This church was built to face Jerusalem. Mosques face Mecca. When Hagia Sophia became a mosque, they couldn't move the church, but they could move the focal point of the praying. Notice how the prayer niche is just a little bit off-center. That's because it faces Mecca. Can remember ever being, you venture back into the city, ready for more history and art. Grand Bazaar. In many ways, Istanbul's Grand Bazaar remains much as it was centuries ago, enchanting and perplexing visitors with its maze-like network of more than 4,000 colorful shops, fragrant eateries, and insistent shopkeepers.
Now it's your turn. Price?
Despite the tourists and the knickknacks, the heart of the Grand Bazaar still beats, giving the observant visitor an unforgettable memory. In its day, this labyrinthian warren of shops under fine arches was the World Trade Center for the entire Ottoman Empire, locked down and guarded by more than 100 soldiers every night. Today, the main drag is touristy, but the complex is so big, it's still easy to escape the tourist zones and discover some authentic nooks and crannies. Surprises await in the low-rent fringes of the market.